Okay, it's 6 o'clock on January 10th. I will call the regular board meeting of Lowell Light and Power to order. And if you will do roll call, Charlie?
Happy to. Chairman Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chair Straubing. Here. Board Member Cadwalder.
Here.
Board Member Crawford. Here. Board Member Funker.
Here. We have, we have a couple guests. Steve, former General Manager Steve Donkerslew is here tonight, going to do a presentation for MPPA. And Jeff Dickerman is here, a former board member. And Jeff, while we're doing this, by all means, feel free to participate in conversations and ask questions as we're going along. So with that, I would, any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So motioned. I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes from December 13th, 2022, our regular board meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to action items. And I'll let Charlie introduce.
All right. First up on the action items is the MPPA Business Model Risk Assessment presentation. MPPA's, I wrote the title down just so I can get it right. Director of Strategic Energy Resources and Services, Steve Donkerslew, also the former general manager of Lowell Light and Power, is going to present the executive summary. But this was a strategic initiative the MPPA took on in 2021, correct? First year was very successful, provided quite a bit of valuable information. Internally staffed, we reviewed it. We talked about it at the board table. MPPA brought the initiative back or is continuing to do it in 2022 for 2022, and have continued to expand and make improvements. Want to just highlight that this is some of the value added that MPPA brings to the table, and this is pretty comprehensive and very valuable look into our risk profile as a utility. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Donkerslew.
Thanks, Charlie. It's good to be back, everybody. Appreciate you having MPPA and myself here. So high-level overview before we actually jump into the report. MPPA has performed a financial credit type of risk report card for its members the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. But a couple of years ago, as Charlie mentioned, MPPA, we just recognize that the industry is changing quickly. You have new technologies coming to market. Customers are becoming more and more sophisticated. There's a focus on decarbonization. You have thermal resources retiring. You have intermittent resources coming to market. The grid edge, the end use customer, now has more control than ever before. FERC is pushing reforms. Technology is developed. Again, customers want to take control of their own destiny. And MPPA, we're just an extension of our members. We're nothing without the members. So MPPA is only going to be as successful as the collection of its members. So as long as members are doing what they need to do to remain competitive and relevant, it's going to allow MPPA to be strong. We're going to be able to negotiate better power purchase agreements for you, lower prices. We're going to be able to invest in generation resources. When we issue debt, our credit rating will be stronger, lead to lower borrowing costs. So, at the heart of what we're doing here is helping the end use customer, the retail customer, get the lowest cost of power possible. So we had this financial report card type of program for several years, but because of all the changes that we recognized were happening in the industry, we said, that's not enough. There are operational risks that our members need to be aware of. So 2 years ago, we limited the assessment to retail rate competitiveness and customer concentration risk. But last year, we looked at distributed energy resource readiness. And distributed energy resource readiness, or DER, has become quite a buzzword. You see at the Michigan Public Service Commission, the Environmental Innovative Business Council, FERC, DER is everywhere. DER is any resource located at the distribution level. Historically it's been natural gas turbines or diesel generators, but now it's rooftop solar. It's fuel cell, it's storage, it can be demand response, it can be the Internet of Things. EVs, whether you believe it or not, Ford, GM, all the major auto manufacturers are spending the vast majorities of their capital budgets for the next however many years investing in battery technology. And General Motors has a vehicle V2G program, vehicle to grid, but now Tom Weeks, I haven't read up on this yet, so some of you like Andrew may know more than me even, but vehicle to X, vehicle to anything. So it's really critical that utilities, MPPA's members, are just recognizing what their operational risks are and then preparing for them. So again, the end goal is to serve the retail customer for the lowest cost possible by identifying where risk exists, where you may not have risk. Tell the good news, right? Where your retail rates may be competitive. Where you have risk, identify it and create an action plan so that it can be addressed and mitigated. So the first thing we looked at, and feel free to interrupt me, ask questions, provide comments, even challenge me if you disagree, that we looked at was retail rate competitiveness. This initiative took place in calendar year 2022, but it was looking at calendar year 2021 data. So we met with all members the end of the first quarter last year, asked them for a lot of data. It was calendar year 2021. The way in which we compared Lowell's retail rates to consumers, we created the average customer in each one of your rate classes. So we asked for the total kilowatt hour sales, the total dollar sales, and the total customer count in each one of your rate classes. And we were able to calculate what the average usage profile was for that average customer. We then took that usage profile, plugged it into Consumers Energy's rate models, which we reverse engineered, compared them to the Michigan Public Service Commission data, and we said, if Perry Beecham in rate, if he in rate 121 magically became a Consumers Energy customer, and Perry's usage represented the average usage in the customer class, what would Perry have paid? So that line 121 is Lowell's residential rate. The average Lowell resident in calendar year 2021 paid 12.6 cents. The average Lowell resident under a consumer's rate would have paid 18.4 cents. It's a difference
I
of
can testify the truth to that.
31.5% different. And we did this for every one of your rate classes. So rate 221 is your general service, rate 222 is your general service demand, and your rates 223 and 224 are your industrial customers. But why is this important? One, if you're not competitive, if you're a business that has the capability of moving, and MPPA has many members who have businesses all over the country, even world, you want to make sure you're competitive. Because if you're not, businesses may look to operate, move their operations elsewhere. That can negatively impact the remaining customer base. Your ability to attract new customers can in part be factored by your rate competitiveness. Also, if you're not competitive, you might want to do a deep dive. What are my costs on a per kilowatt hour basis, O&M, power supply, A&G, relative to my peers in the industry? And the APPA puts out an annual publication where they represent what the average O&M cost, the average power supply cost per unit is for all utilities in the Midwest, utilities by size, so you can compare and benchmark yourselves if you're competitive. But also, if you do have a good news story, you really should be telling it. I worked here for 11 years, and it's amazing how many people call and have the perspective that you're really expensive. We'd rather have somebody else. You know, APPA says public power doesn't do a good enough job of telling the story. You know, representing to the public, their constituents, the value proposition they provide. Well, this is a great way to create that goodwill, that positive PR, because for Lowell Light and Power across the board, all of your rates were significantly cheaper than consumers. We did provide the models to Lowell, so they have the capability of inputting any specific customer and comparing that. Again, this is the average customer for calendar year 2021. So MPPA, utilizing S&P, Standard & Poor's, they're one of the 3 rating agencies in the country. You have S&P, Fitch, and Moody's. If you were to issue debt, here, issue revenue bonds to fund a project, you ultimately would have to have your debt rated. S&P has many different things they look at to rate your debt. Retail rate competitiveness is actually one of the things they look at. If you're not competitive, if we scroll up a little bit, Charlie, or Julie, I'm sorry, that second bullet point there, one second, there's a glare here. Can influence the willingness to raise rates and revenue flexibility, which are key credit considerations. So if you're more expensive, S&P recognizes that if you needed to raise rates for whatever reason, there may be a reluctance from council governing bodies to raise rates, which causes credit concerns that you're going to have the cash flow you need to continue to be solvent. So very important to pay attention to, and amazingly, the vast majority of MPPA's members don't have a good idea of how they fare. Another really important thing to pay attention to here is, in a silo, having rates that are more affordable than your peers or your competitors is a good thing, but you can have artificially low rates, and you have to balance your rates versus your investment in staff, systems, your distribution system, as well as your balance sheet. So you could have really low rates, but what if you had 30 days cash on hand? Or what if you hadn't invested in your infrastructure and your system is 95% depreciated? Well, it's pretty darn easy to have low rates if you're not taking care of those 2 pieces of the puzzle. So again, look at this, but also I would encourage Charlie and the financial staff here to make sure you balance this with investment and with the balance sheet.
Are there ways to compare those factors as well?
There are. S&P has recommendations for days on cash on hand. They also have recommendations and things they look at for debt per KW, debt per customer, debt per taxpayer, debt per kilowatt hour, various metrics, and they'll say, you know, you want X number of days cash on hand. So I've been out of that world for a little bit. I probably could throw some things out there, but you know, I think 150 to 180 days cash on hand. You know, they're even moving it to 210. I think that's a little ridiculous, but I can't see why you need 7 months cash on hand to operate. But again, I think it's more of a CYA sometimes for a rating agency. But there are things you can do to compare those other things. I think when I was here, and maybe you continue to do it, Julie or Megan does it, but annually after the audit, we had reported on the percent that your system was depreciated. If you had funded that year into your system, the amount that your system had depreciated that particular year. So there are things you can look at there.
We'll do that next month, actually.
Okay.
I'm gonna be here next month, yeah. And I can say, we also went through the S&P surveillance review this year, and this all bears out in their report. You know, if you want, I'm sure I included that in the board packet, but there's some, if you look at that report and compare it to MPPA's analysis, you'll see lots of commonality between how MPPA evaluated our risk and the components that they looked at in the S&P review.
So is there been a thought to comparing, like, so we have the Lowell versus consumers kind of rate, but what about factoring in like reliability or like let's say the KD. type.
Funny, I actually brought that up. We decided not to do it this particular year. A lot of the members do not keep track of their SAIDI, SAFE, AC, KD, all of that data. So it would be pretty limited. I think probably 6, 7 of our 22 members actually keep track of that data, unfortunately.
Okay.
Lowell Power does a pretty good job through APPA's reliability tracker, actually tracking that. I mean, Holland's and Grand Havens and Zealand's and Lansing and Traverse City do a pretty good job, but unfortunately, a lot of the smaller members aren't keeping track of that. And it's administratively time consuming for the members and for MPPA to gather data. To try to go the reliability route would be a next step, but we've talked about helping our members evaluate or try to value your entire utility, and obviously reliability would be a key thing to do that. So it could be a next step.
Okay. Also, I also thought you had talked about having a low rate might mean you're underfunding, your system, but if you're maintaining a high reliability compared to your competitors and a lower rate compared to your competitors, that seems like a nice thing to advertise.
Yes.
Zealand.
Zealand, yes.
Zealand comes to mind.
I mean, if you, this is just a general consensus of what you, water cooler talk and everything, you don't hear, the number one thing that you hear about Lowell Light and Power is their reliability. You don't hear as much about cost, where we sit, and everything. I mean, I would say a good share of our ratepayers are take pride, and we take pride, is the reliability. I think a lot of times it's the cost is secondary to the reliability.
Well, I just kind of think in general, like, people are usually willing to pay more for better quality, and we're kind of saying, hey, you're getting better quality for less in this state.
Yeah, you're keeping, I haven't done the math, but I could safely say well over $1 million, if not a couple $1 million in ratepayers' pockets that they're able to utilize to reinvest in their families or businesses or enjoy life.
What would be that, and I guess maybe a survey or something like that, we could discover what that sweet spot is, where people are, the highest amount people are willing to pay for the values they're getting.
Then we will, later this year, we'll go through and discuss the survey quite a bit. We're looking at, well, we signed on with APPA, the Public Power Data Source, so we'll be surveying, and we'll hopefully get a little more quantitative information on that, because I would agree that the vast majority of the customer comments I hear are about reliability. People like to know that we're cheaper, but they take pride in the reliability, and I think you probably heard quite a few of the same sentiments. And
Oh yeah, people don't like being without power.
yeah,
Not at
All those surveys, if you could be without power for 24 hours or pay $100, almost everybody paid $100, but then when their bill's $80 for the month, they're mad about it, it doesn't seem to make too much sense, does it?
And I'm assuming you've got a plan to promote this information to our ratepayers. And, yeah.
We will be doing this again. The feedback from members, and we identified it internally as well, as we're presenting this information to our members like late in the calendar year for the calendar year previous. We've asked members to complete data requests for calendar year 2022 now, so that we can turn around their results, end of first quarter, early second quarter, so Charlie can have this conversation with you about calendar year 2022 in a matter of months instead of this time next year.
and we will probably wait until we have that data before we go, because of the change in timeline and recent rate action. Wait till we have the most recent data available before we promote too much.
There's a lot of volatility in 2022, to say the least.
Does the overall MPPA member data, like the aggregate, is that something that's available? I'm kind of curious, like how MPPA members?
It's
as
not.
a whole compared
It's
to-
not. Now, we've given each member this report that we've encouraged them to bring to their governing body. We shared good in low risk, medium risk, high risk, but didn't call out each member to the entire board last September. If you remember that,
Yeah,
we
that was a
saw
really good.
1 through 22, and then you saw retail rate competitiveness, and you saw green, yellow, or red, but you didn't know who was who. So we
Right,
tried to,
like, as an overall, as an aggregate, like, how do MPPA members as a whole compare to?
we would be
Not
good.
MPPA.
The large members, if you look at the Hollands, most of the large members are pretty darn competitive. So if you had to weight by kilowatt hour, that would weigh. Lansing actually is less competitive, surprisingly. All right, I'm through with that section. I think if we go down to, okay, next steps, I already covered number 2. The second bullet there, if you scroll up, Julie. You know, if you didn't have a rate strategy, working with a consultant like UFS, MPPA recommends that, you know, you do engage with a consultant so you can develop a rate track so you can get on track. Any questions or comments there before we keep moving?
Of these 3 different metrics here, is there one that weighs heavier than the others? It's more important? Are they equally as important? How?
No, I wouldn't say they're equal. For example, DER, it's coming. In some communities, it's here, but it's really preparing for the future because it's hard to flip a light switch overnight. But 5 years from now, I'd say DER is the most important. I'd say, and it also depends what your risk profile looks like. You know, Harbor Spring, for example, is primarily residential, very low commercial and industrial. You know, they're gonna reflect almost no customer concentration risk. So if to them I said, this is the most important category, and they would say, oh, we're doing great. We're good, we don't have to do anything else. I don't want them to focus on that. So it really depends on the risk profile in your community and utility. Anything else? So customer concentration risk, just to make sure everyone understands what we mean by that, it's the percentage share that that key customer groups make up of your total utility megawatt hour sales. So when we look at top customer there in that table, that represents the megawatt hours to your largest customer in sales divided by the total sales for your utility. Like retail rate competitiveness, S&P evaluates utilities through this lens. And why? You know, if you have a large percentage of your sales to one or a select few number of customers, if that customer were to go away, COVID happens again, or a pandemic, and they just have to shut down, or industry or technology changes and what they're doing isn't relevant anymore, or they just decide to leave town because pastures are greener elsewhere, you know, that's a real risk to cash flow. If you've issued debt, you're planning to collect that debt on a per kW or per kWh basis amongst all customers. Well, that debt now has to be collected by those that remain. So it's really important to pay attention to. And actually in Holland, Dave Koster, utility director there, they're experiencing incredible load growth. LG Chem, battery manufacturer, installing massive facilities where Holland's load could grow by 34 to 40% from one customer. He's identified that that's going to pose significant customer concentration risk, and he's even looking at how do we design a rate for this customer such that the rest of our other customers aren't unduly burdened or at risk. You know, should we really be investing in generation to supply that load not knowing if that load will be around for 20, 25 years, and I'm issuing debt for that generation investment over a 20, 25-year term. When you make power supply decisions with a power purchase agreement, whether it's solar or wind or whatever have you, that power purchase agreement offtake is going to all customers. Well, if a customer goes away, that means everyone else is left. So whether it's your rate design, your investment in generation, the contracts you execute, it's very important to pay attention to in this. And S&P prefers that the majority of sales comes from the residential customers. It's more inelastic. Yes, COVID, people are at home more, they use more, but generally speaking, if there is a dwelling, a residential dwelling, it's going to be lived in by someone, they're going to be consuming energy. That's not always true for a large C&I facility. Unfortunately, but fortunately, because by having large employers, there's benefits to a community, but looking in the silo at customer concentration risk only, the makeup of Lowell Light and Power's customers does pose risk. 26% of sales go to residential customers, top 10 customers, 53.5%, top customer, 20%. So when we take that and scroll down to look at Lowell Light and Power's overall risk profile, it's high. Now, this is not uncommon for MPPA's members. The vast majority of municipals have concentration risk. And it's not something that Charlie West or Steve Donkerslew or Greg Pierce before me or this board or council has done bad. I mean, yeah, you can attract load somewhat and that can help mitigate it, but this isn't anything that, Charlie has done wrong or that anybody else has done wrong. It's just the makeup of the community. What's important is to understand that you have a risk, and now how can we mitigate that risk? So I've already talked about some of the things you want to consider: investing in generation, the contracts you sign, the rates you design as well. But having a key customer accounts program, relationships with large end users are key. Sharing the value proposition that the utility provides. Fortunately, Lowell Light and Power has lower rates. Do your large customers know that? It'd be really good if they did. Do they understand their rate structure, how the KW demand component on their rate works, energy efficiency or energy waste reduction programs that Lowell Light and Power can offer to help reduce that peak demand? We're seeing more and more nowadays large end users who have decarbonization or sustainability goals. Personally, I've worked with several members, large end use customers who have sustainability goals. We're encouraging our members through a key customer account program to approach their end use customers, inquire about if they have sustainability goals, and if they do, let them know Lowell Light and Power with MPPA can help that end user achieve those goals. So that key customer accounts program, when you're that end user and the utility approaches you, they're the subject matter experts. They have it going on, they know what they're doing. And you also learn a lot about the customer, about expansion plans, about plans to maybe leave, just about their operations, etc. So that's something that Sharon Morris, she had taken an APPA, Key Customer Accounts certification program. And it was good, especially for a utility our size, but I don't know if it's as good, sitting where I am now, 2 years at MPPA. I think, there's things that program can develop into that it wasn't when I was here. I'm not sure where that is now or what's developed. I know Sharon's no longer here, but I would just encourage, Charlie and his staff from an MPPA perspective to make that key customer accounts program a priority, because you do have risk here. And then you also want to have a rate strategy to ensure that your utility's fixed rates or your fixed costs are recovered from fixed cost components in your rate structure, and your variable costs that go up and down like power supply are recovered through variable components in your rate structure. And most of this board, I think everybody but Craig was here when we made the decision to move the customer charge on the residential rate from $10.80 all the way up to, I think, the mid-20s. And the idea was we're not properly recovering our fixed costs, our overheads, our salaries, the things that we're gonna have to pay no matter what that customer uses. So from my perspective, Lowell Power's done a really good job, over time modifying their rates so they're properly recovering their overhead and fixed costs. And that rate strategy directly relates to this third topic, not that we've moved there yet, Julie, DER readiness. As end-use customers install resources on their premise, whether it's fuel cell or solar, inevitably they're gonna use less power. Well, if they're using less power and you have been recovering fixed overhead costs through that variable component in their rates, you're now not recovering the amount of revenue you need for your fixed costs. So as distributed energy resources come to market, it's really important to have a good rate structure. And every member at MPPA is different. Lowell, it's pretty darn hard for King Million to put in a solar, facility. They just don't have land. In Zealand, their largest customer has 80 to 100 acres that they're strongly considering installing solar. So that would be significant loss in megawatt hour sales to that end use customer. So it's important to have proper rate design.
The only other thing I'll make on the comment,
Yeah,
customer concentration, an interesting thing, I don't think we talked about it, but an interesting that came out of the S&P surveillance study this year was associated with our customer concentration is the reliance on the food industry. 3 of our top customers are entirely food related. You've got King Milling, White House, and Meyer. So they didn't really tell us how that impacted our rating, but it was specifically called out. Of all the industries to have concentration in, food is one that's not a luxury item. So I would think that there's some positives. And if you're going to have a concentration in a single industry, food is probably not a bad one, but.
I failed to mention that,
Interesting.
all customer concentration risk isn't equal. If you had a prison or a school system or a university or city facilities using power, they're at a lower risk of leaving or just going bankrupt compared to a manufacturer in the auto supply chain. We didn't go to that level here, but when you work with S&P or Moody's or Fitch, you can tell that story. Yes, there's the initial data crunch, but you can have those conversations and they will, at least in part, adjust their rating, where there may be less risk, to Charlie's point.
We did a lot of that with the S&P review.
So are we at the point, because of, everybody's talking about, global warming, and us not having energy down the road, because it's shifted, it sounds like we're shifting towards the fact that if the high school wants to put solar panels on their roof, we're supporting them even more so than what we did 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were looking at, there's a loss of revenue. And then fast forward to today, because we don't know if we're gonna have that energy coming in, we would support them to be, their own silo, standalone, or are we there yet to that, or?
I think I know what you're asking. I think as a utility, you want to have a rate structure so you're indifferent if an end-use customer decides to go that route. Where I think Andrew put it this way many years ago, it's almost as if Lowell Power is operating the grid, but they're agnostic to whether or not they're getting power from an end-use customer with solar, or whether it's MPPA, or whether you're generating internally. I don't think we're there yet, or we're not going to have power in the future. That's a whole separate conversation. But with DER, which is this third topic, you are seeing more end users install energy on premise.
I would be one of them.
There you go.
You are?
Yeah. I put in 19.2 kW system at my house. But my rates out in County here They're higher than yours.
Slightly different.
I just checked, it says that my residential bill is trending toward $425 next month. So I'm hoping to get the same commission tomorrow.
Maybe hurt just a little bit when you said that.
I'm back to Lowell, we miss you.
Ready to go on, Steve?
Yeah, if there are any other questions or comments. I've interconnected this topic already, but again, DER resources are resources at the distribution level. I'm not gonna get into the various FERC reforms, they do exist. But ultimately the edge of the grid, so that retail customer level, FERC wants to ensure they can participate. Now there are some exemptions and things smaller utilities can do, but my boss, Pat Bowen, and I drink the Kool-Aid, if utilities hang their hat on some legislative rule or being a monopoly, eventually people will change those rules. And you know, this is a competitive market, even if you don't think it is. You're judged by everything you do, and things will change. So there are things happening at FERC. You see technology develop, it always wins, technology does, and customer perspectives are changing. So to be ready for that DER future, MPPA recognized that there are three major buckets of items utilities should be planning for, and that's the metering, the interconnection policy, and the retail rates. We asked binary yes/no questions under each of these categories. You can really peel back the onion here. You know, when I was here, we got AMI and we were doing some limited good things with it. Really scratched the surface when I was here. You know, you could really do a lot, but having that intelligence, understanding the two-way flow of power on a real-time basis, as well as on an incremental basis, can be done through AMI. Your interconnection policy really governs the size of the DER resource that can be installed by an end-use customer. Also has the safety specifications, inspection specifications, etc. You want that in place. And then your retail rate design, making sure you have unbundled rates with proper compensation methodology so that Jeff Dickerman, who has DER, isn't being subsidized, or he's not subsidizing someone else, so that you're properly compensating that end-use customer. So those are the three categories we evaluated. To the questions, which I don't have handy, under those categories, Lowell Light and Power answered yes. So your risk profile, when we scroll down here, is low. It doesn't exist, so you're at 0, which is great. Again though, because you answered yes to MPPA's high-level AMI type questions, and I think they were, do you have AMI? That was one of the 4. Do you store data in an incremental fashion, at least at the hourly or 15-minute level? You know, is your AMI data integrated with other systems? Well, you could probably answer yes to those, but those may be surface level yes answers. You want to make sure that you really have peeled back that onion, and the intent that we're trying to get at when we ask our yes/no questions is actually happening and taking place. But very good here. This is where the vast majority of MPPA's members are not ready. We have, I think, 8 members that don't have AMI yet. Most of them, after I've hammered on them for the last couple of years, 5 of those 8 have decided they're going to get it. 2 or 3 are waiting to get it. They've approved it, but supply chain is limiting them. And you know, that takes a couple, 3 years to roll out soup to nuts, and even when you have it, you recognize there's a lot you need to do with it. It just doesn't happen overnight. So that's why we're trying to get ahead of this thing, because if DER and EVs and rooftop solar becomes a thing, we don't want a lot of members at risk. And when they're at risk, the agency as a whole is at risk, per the preamble comments that I made early on. So this was new this year, and Lowell's doing a great job.
Yeah, I want to, compliment, I mean, you got the ball rolling on this, and, Charlie has, of course, picked it up.
He's got the details.
Yeah, and, you guys should be proud of yourself for what you're doing, because we are ahead of the curve on this.
There was some people that was on the struggle bus. There was. I questioned it, you know, but because I was on the board, I said, let's do it, let's pull the trigger, so.
How
that's-
many,
That's got me past it.
How many of your customers are not on AMI yet at this point?
I think it was 8 or 9.
No, we have 8, yeah.
8. And what was 80 when I was on the board?
Yeah, I was thinking of which ones, yeah, we have 8 customers, about a year ago, we implemented a AMI opt-out fee. Yeah, and basically Ryan and went
Yeah,
door to
that was
door,
funny.
and by the time it was all said and done, we have 8 willing to pay. They knocked out 3/4 of them by the time we passed the policy.
Right.
Ryan went knocking door to door, this is coming, we'll swap it out, okay.
I was surprised at how well that worked.
I couldn't believe that we got that.
Me either.
Most utilities don't offer the option.
So, to Steve and Charlie, do you see our cost of service dramatically increasing? And I ask that because I'm looking at through a different lens maybe or whatever, but I'm looking at, so you have these, so like Jeff has, you know, his own, but there's always some time that I'm assuming that you're gonna need power from a utility or whatever. So even though that they're not, you're not getting the income from them like you once did. But I guess I'm saying that we're gonna really have to keep on top of the cost of service, because when they need us and they want to flip the switch, they expect it to come there. So even though you're not receiving as much money from them, or you're gonna need to make sure you're gonna have
All
the same or
infrastructure.
more infrastructure provided to them, whether they're using you 100% or they're using you 10% out of the month.
And what actually materializes, we'll wait to see, but yes, I think that highlights the need to have an appropriate rate structure in place so that our fixed costs are recovering those costs. The fixed revenue that we receive covers our fixed cost to continue to keep those poles and wires. We want to be in the delivery of electron business, not the energy business. We want to more than anything sell the power as it's on the path to it. But that goes back to you want to be agnostic to what your customers do, because you want to be able to continue to have poles, wires, everything in place, because they want the availability. They don't, which is why a lot of utilities will rename their customer charge a service availability charge.
Readiness to serve.
Readiness to serve, the concept behind that cost of service is that it covers our cost to have everything in place. So yes, I think intuitively that cost of service will go up because we earn a margin that gets reinvested into the system. So if on a wholesale level, every customer basically stopped buying kilowatt hours, I would argue that our costs would not be reduced by an equal amount. But that's the bookends. Where we actually land is somewhere in the middle, and we want to make sure that our rates are in a position so that people who live in apartment complexes who don't have the availability to put solar on are not being forced to subsidize those customers that do decide to do that, and that they stand on their own 2 feet. So I guess it's a roundabout answer of yes.
And California just had to do a big correction on this. They've got, an excess of renewables on the grid, and they're, paying out more than they're recovering, so they had to come up with another rate structure. So as new people come onto the grid, they're paying this new rate structure. The people that have what they have are grandfathered in. Yeah, I was just out there for 2 weeks and, we were talking about this. He's, grandfathered into a rate structure that will continue, until he has to change his solar panels.
Yeah, it's probably a net metering.
Yeah.
Not net billing. We net bill, so anything you put back on the bill, or onto the grid is compensated at our avoided cost, where net metering nets out your kilowatt hours, so you end up essentially receiving full retail. You're compensated at full retail rate for everything you put back on the grid, which means now the utility is paying you for money, their margin.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a big push when solar first got popular for net metering, and almost every state that had mandates that required net metering have rolled those back. I don't know if you probably have better visibility into what's happening on a bigger scale, but most areas are rolling back net metering agreements and putting in more avoided cost compensation structures.
Agreed. That's the last item.
And I can say that from a DER standpoint, we've seen pickup in the last 6 months. We're evaluating our processes regularly. We've gone through the process of the customer interconnecting a couple times, and now that the boots are hitting the ground, we can take the words on the paper and understand how to convert policies into procedures and implement those policies. So we continue, some things that aren't captured in a evaluation like this are how we as people actually implement the policies. Because you have great policies on the books, but if you don't have a procedure that matches up to your policy, then that policy is just words on the paper. So we're working through those enhancements right now, and I think we're in a good spot. We've again learned solar installers are a challenge typically, and as a smaller entity, we're not known to every solar installer. So they come into our service territory and they may or may not be familiar with us. So there's some, we've dealt with one for 2 different installations, and we're starting to, Brian's developing a little bit of a rapport with them, and we're starting to, like I said, when the boots hit the ground, we're enhancing how we enforce, or not enforce, but we carry out the policies that the board's approved. So we continue to improve on DER readiness from a practical standpoint.
So we were at the end, is this year, when we had the cost of service study done for utility services or
UFS?
We're at the end of that 5 years, correct?
Yes.
So will we be looking at, in the very near future, doing another study for the next 5 years, or?
That was included, so the presentation from Mark last month,
Yep,
included in that 5-year rate plan was an update to the cost of service study. It was more noise than anything this time, because you weren't looking at a $14 differential between current customer charge and
right.
identified cost of service. I would anticipate incremental increases in the cost of service, or in the customer charge over the next 5 years, but I think we put 50 cents into the customer charge this year. So residential just increased 50 cents. And that's where we focus more is on the quantity. We are significantly under cost of service at like the industrial level, but if we lose an industrial customer, losing that fixed component is only part of the problem. We've got bigger issues at that point. So the focus is making sure that residential, and we continue to move the industrial and commercial in the right direction, but that lower usage customers, residential, small commercial, that customer charge represents such a bigger percentage of their overall utility bill that the focus was on more so getting those customers where they need to be. So we're in a good spot from a residential and commercial, or small commercial standpoint. And again, we're in a good spot with industrial. It's just different pieces to that puzzle.
I have a question for you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Should I read into the fact that like the gas gauge is like different sizes of green, yellow, red between the different risk profiles, like to do like a competitive rate?
Yeah, there is, behind the scenes, different gauges. There's S&P, if you can,
Because like the concentration, we're midway, but
yeah, this is,
high risk.
looks like a third.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did break it down behind the scenes, so
Okay.
you could fall, you know,
Not all of
So, like,
you could fall in the green, but you weren't perfect. Here you were absolutely perfect.
right. Well, this, because it's kind of, like you said, it's like simple kind of binary answer.
Yeah.
It's not, you haven't developed it to be more.
But yeah, it was weighted behind the scenes.
And then the concentration would be more red because more of the members have that, so it's just, is that like part of what that would drive that to be, for us to be here and high, but like kind of on the safe side of high concentration?
Industrial, top customer, if you can scroll back up so I can just see this, Julie.
Right there.
That's the one you wanted?
Yeah, so you're saying, why is?
High risk is over
I
half
just-
of the, instead
Yeah.
of a third, you've got, 30%, 20%, 50%, whatever.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
that kind of?
Yeah, residential, yes, what Charlie said, it's not equally weighted.
Yep.
Right.
And I think there's some more details that we see in some of the back end stuff as far as, the files that they sent 15 files with one executive summary. We can dig in a little bit if you want, and in behind the scenes.
I was just wondering how.
Yeah, no, there's, yeah, behind the scenes here, there's spreadsheets that this is like the output, but yeah, each of those categories are weighted differently. And how you scored in each of the category ultimately matters, right?
Right.
So I guess final comments, I'm putting my MPPA hat on, from an MPPA perspective, appreciate the fact that the board, Charlie, let MPPA to participate in tonight's meeting. We are doing this, as many members as we can. 15 or 16 have committed to bringing this to their order council. I'm going to Sturgis tomorrow. I've been in Paw, I've been in Portland, Charlevoix, Petoskey. So hopefully that gives Lowell Light and Power comfort, knowing that MPPA is doing this with everybody. We are seeing action amongst members, so that will only benefit everyone. But from MPPA's perspective, Lowell's doing a lot of really good things. We have a great staff here, very engaged. We appreciate Charlie, Casey, both attending MPPA board meetings, and seems like at every APPA or MMEA or MPPA stakeholder event, there's at least one board member in attendance, so we do appreciate that. That's all I have.
Thank you. I appreciate having you here. And
Good to be here.
yeah.
Feel bad leaving, and I feel like Peter, the auditor, but this is true.
You got family at home.
What?
Yeah, sure.
Got a whole clan.
Whole clan.
Lots of youngins and horses. And,
Lindsay knows it.
oh, I see the videos of Steve on the back porch and Lindsay out
I'll be drinking a good whiskey.
mucking stuff. Lindsay's out there with the pitchfork.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you
Yeah.
coming.
No, it's
It's
good
nice
to
to have you
see.
back.
We just gotta drive all the way back to Lansing now, and
What?
No, that's tomorrow morning. Big board meeting tomorrow. Big board meeting.
Yay.
All right, we'll have Steve back. Just so the board's aware, I'd like to bring Steve back once a year, once every 18 months. It's good to hear from MPPA, and they've always got great insights, and Yeah, appreciate, it's nice having you in the backyard, and appreciate it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
Great, good seeing you, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Have a good rest of your meetings.
Thank you.
Oh, man, 55, man, you guys.
Text me now, John.
This next one's gonna go quick. All right, you'll roll on.
Yep, Hart Solar Power Purchase Commitment Amendment.
All right, so, we've talked about all of our solar deals, there's no sense in restating things that have been said repeatedly, but again, every solar agreement that we had signed that had not reached commercial operation date was seeking to amend their purchase power agreements. We've talked about the confluence of events between tariff circumvention investigations, supply chain issues, there's a third one, whatever, it's all a mess. Labor investigations too. So there's a lot going on in creating challenges to bringing new solar installations to the grid on a utility scale. The amended and restated purchase power commitment authorization form for the Hart Solar project is in your board packet. To highlight the two big changes, this is a fixed contract for the duration. I think it's a 20-year commitment or 20-year contract, but it's a fixed price for the duration of the contract. So we saw a 15% increase in the rate that took it up to $48.50 a megawatt hour, and then we saw approximately a 1-year delay in commercial operation date. To give perspective, new deals that are being discussed are at a later COD date and somewhere north of $60 a megawatt hour. So the way I see it is there's really not a whole lot of other options but to approve this. So with that being said, it's our recommendation, staff's recommendation to approve the Hart Solar amended and restated power purchase commitment agreement or authorization presented in your board packet.
I'll move to approve the amended purchase power commitment.
Supported.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, so this last action item was just an error of omission. When we approved rates last month, the rate package did not include an updated rate for the time of use rate. Didn't factor into any of the models because we don't have anybody on it. I told Julie I can't believe we went through a 6-month long process with UFS, talked about 10,000 things, spent hours on the phone and hours in WebExes with them, and it never came up. So the rate design being presented today is an updated time of use rate design that follows the same rate action that the regular residential rate had, which was an 8.5% increase. The only other thing that I want to make the board aware of, we refer to this rate as RT 111, but a lot of our rates we just refer to as the number. This is really some minute details that don't impact anything, but if we're going to make a change at the rate level, I want to make sure the board's aware because the board approves all rates. On the bill, it doesn't have the RT or RS or any of the letters. It just says 111. Well, 111, the RS 111 rate was what we call, or what is referred to as an appurtenance rate. It's for appurtenant structures, so secondary buildings on residential property. It's related to the LEAF program. Long story short, we would, in addition to approving the rate update, want to make the board aware that we're going to convert this rate to an RT 131 rate. It's just so customers, if they look at the bill, they can look at their bill and say, I'm on 131, let me pull up the policy, and they don't have to worry about the difference between RT 111 and RS 111. So it doesn't impact anything, but again,
Just so the nomenclature is more in line and.
it just,
Yeah.
like I said, more than anything, don't want to make a change to a rate and update something without board approval, as this is a board approved document. So, good catch, Julie. So with that, we would recommend the approval of the residential time of use rate that follows, that mirrors the updated rate for the standard flat residential rate.
Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Supported.
It's been moved and supported to adopt of the updated time of use rates.
Does this knock it back? The city council was having this on,
No, because we went ahead and submitted, the rates that the board approved last month were updated, submitted to the city last month. Those rates will sit for 30 days and will be active when we bill at the end of the month. But again, we're still in testing phase on this, so this, what I'll do is I'll update the rate design in the rate document. I'll send that over to the city for public record. So technically, this individual rate would not be valid for 30
yeah,
days.
gotcha.
Everything else has been filed with the city for 30 days.
So I very.
Nobody's using that right
Yeah, and
anyway, so it's.
Yeah, it fell through the cracks because there was no impact to the rate model and the financial model, and that financial model is what dictates how we divide up that 6.5% overall rate increase in class by class, so it just fell through the cracks because nobody's on the rate yet.
Okay, a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Informational items.
All right, so last month we reviewed the policy for review in your board packet was the disconnect for non-payment. And Julie, I want to say 4 years ago-ish.
Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, did a presentation for the board on the disconnect policy, so I asked her to just refresh the board. It's unfortunately with issues with inflation, with the economy, with all the factors that are impacting us, the need to utilize this policy is unfortunately, the likelihood is increasing. So again, for some board members, this will be a refresher. Some board members have never heard this, so I thought it would just be good to have Julie review the collections process again. So some of the data is a little old, but it's really more about what is the process. And
Yeah, I just used the exact same one that I presented in 2019 because the process didn't change, but the data that's there is back then. Just time restraints, I didn't have time to remove, but it's you'll see, nothing really changed. We didn't change any
Models
process.
still.
Yeah, just the charts are new, but, so yeah, the collection process starts after due date, so everyone's bill, is due on the 20th by 5 PM. If it runs on a holiday or a weekend, we always bump it to the next business day. They do receive a late fee, and the late fee is $10 plus 2% of the balance on the account, no matter if it's past due or current. At that point, all of it would be considered past due. So for the example I'm going to, is, the information that was due November 20th, okay? So, steps that we do after due date. So after it was due on November 20, then as of December, a shut-off letter goes out on the first business day. Then we tag the door, then we call and email the day of disconnection, and then a line worker sent out to disconnect. So
Wait a
how
minute.
that works is,
I got a question. Could you go back up to that? Okay, so,
well, I'll go into more detail each one, but.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
all right.
yeah. So
Thank
this
you.
is just to tell you what the steps are.
Okay,
And then, so the shut-off letter. So we print them in-house, we prepare them, everything, mail, stuff them, the first business day of the next month. So for example, in December, we print all the shut-off letters, everyone that didn't pay in November on the 20th, and they haven't paid since November 20th, on December 3rd, for this example, they received a shut-off letter.
Okay.
And and this is private, correct? I mean, and I'm throwing the city under the bus, because I can go in and look at,
Oh, private, yeah, I thought you said something else.
No.
Yes, it is private, nobody knows unless, you have to know the account number and social security number to access anything through our portal.
thank you.
So a tag, so then what would happen is, the letter states that you have 10 days from the date of the letter to make your payment, or you would be shut off. So we then go and tag each door that has not paid at that time. So the system has a process, and we create a tag, and then for the example, we send out Nancy, she goes and tags each door, okay?
So,
That happens 10 days after the date of the letter. So if the letter was sent out on December 3rd, then we go and tag on December 13th, okay? And then the next day, December 14th.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sorry.
So your verbiage on the letter is that the fire will be shut off if, because what I'm getting at is, I know that you have made arrangements with customers, and it's not necessarily paid in full, or, I guess, what is the verbiage? If it's not paid in full, or is it just, if you do not contact us in 10 days?
Yeah, so it does say that you could potentially be shut off, you'd be on the shut off list. It definitely tells them to give us a call, and make arrangements, or make a portion of your payment. I don't think it goes into all those details, just give our office a call.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So the day after we tag, then we post all the payments that come in. With the new portal, they are being posted every 5 seconds, so that part is easier to do the actual calling or emailing. Then we do try to call each person, or we do call each person or email them one final attempt. So if we sent you a bill last month, we sent you a shut-off letter, we tagged you yesterday, we called them that day. So we are making every attempt to try to get a hold of them, to make a promise to pay, to make a partial payment, to just communicate with them what's their issue, or what works for them. So we definitely make every attempt to get a hold of them. So when we do call them, we can't do the red flag law, we can't say you're going to be shut off. So we leave a generic message, especially if it just says this number is not available. We just say it's urgent for you to give our office a call, and then they'll give us a call back if they get the message, and then we explain to them that if it is, this is Julie at this number, I can't get to the phone. Then we do say this is Lowell&P regarding your account. Please give us a call, we need to speak with you immediately. And we give them a couple hours, we try to give them a call or email them in the morning, and then we say you give us a call by noon. And
Thank you.
Right around noon, line worker comes in, we still, look at all the accounts, make sure there isn't a last minute payment. Sometimes people come in, sometimes people are calling right at noon because somebody will take their lunch then. So we make sure that we're waiting as long as we can before the actual time to send the line worker out.
Checking with the city?
Yeah, we're checking with the city, we're checking online, we're checking all the places that payments can be made. We run out to the drop box right at noon, make sure anyone's paying that way. We, kind of funny, but we look out the window, see if anyone's parked, if they're, they could be on a phone call, they're trying to finish up and they're gonna be coming in. We try to make every attempt to, if they're trying to get in, that we're waiting for them.
Another question, sorry. At one time, and I think it was, our phones were not identifying as low light and power on your caller ID. Do they now
Yeah.
identify that this, when it
Yeah,
calls,
I
that it
did
is?
several tests, one of them included your house, your
Okay,
wife helped me
okay.
identify it. When I called
Teresa's the
it,
same.
it's.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, and again, this was probably a year ago or
Yeah.
whatever, but just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah, yeah, I don't think it says exactly low light and power, but I think it says low electric or something, like they can't, like, yeah, they couldn't have all the words, it was too
Right.
long or something.
Are they able to, at this juncture, are they able to call you back and say, can I put it on my credit card?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys, so there's no like,
Do we take credit card payments?
Yeah,
do you? Rock on. Okay, good, thank you.
we try not to, we try to offer the other way, but if someone's on the phone and they're having difficulty, we'll take it.
Okay.
So,
Can somebody else come down and pay the bill for a
we'll take
neighbor?
payment from anyone.
Rock on, okay.
We don't give money out to anybody, but we'll take it from anybody.
We just can't answer questions about it, or if they
Correct.
say,
That's fine.
can I make $200 payment towards this account? Yes, you can. How
That's-
much, how much do they owe? Sorry, we can't tell you that.
How much do they owe, but I want to pay their bill? How does
Well,
that, how does that
sometimes they'll say,
transaction
if I
happen?
pay $300, will that get them off shut up? Yes. So
Okay.
they'll pay that amount to
I
get
didn't
them
know.
off shut off, so they won't be turned off. I actually had someone come in last month. I don't know why they were there, but their daughter-in-law was in the hospital. They had stopped by the house to do something, they didn't tell me, which is none of my business, and they saw the tab. And she was in the hospital, so, they said, we don't want this to be shut off. Can we pay this amount so she won't be shut off, and then, she can pay us back? And I said, that's up to you, that's up to you, I don't wanna be in the middle of who's paying who, but yes, if you pay that, that will take her off the shut off. Okay, that's what they did, they paid that amount, brought the tag in, and they are off running.
That's huge. That's huge, because Blue Cross Blue Shield won't let you do that.
Won't let you pay somebody else's bill?
Nope. No.
I'll take one.
I know. And they won't take credit card over the phone.
Yeah, we encourage them to use the portal, but we have taken it over the phone, especially if someone that struggles with technology or something. They're just not sure. They're just, I've tried.
No comment there.
I've tried, it's not working. Then we help them, so.
Okay.
So then around noon, we determine who's still on that disconnect list. Normally, we send out a guy, but, line worker, and, but the line worker that we send out, they're really good about doing some research, is kind of what I always tell them. Look around, if it's snowy, hey, do you see a car coming in and out? Is this house, is someone living there? Did they get our tag? Does it look like every single person has moved out? Sometimes our line worker runs into the apartment manager, and the manager gives good information, like, hey, they moved out last week. They were evicted, they were this, they were, different things. So we definitely send the line worker out to be another eye on the property. You can't see it, so they go and double check. If the line worker is sent out, they leave our address, they're rolling a truck, we charge that customer a disconnect and reconnect fee of the $50 that's in the rate structure. So if they are disconnected, they're required to pay the past due amount plus that disconnect reconnect fee to be turned back on. If the customer contacts us after we're closed, after 5 p.m. when we close the office, the fee to get turned back on is $100, not additional $100, $100 to get turned back on. Okay? So then, our line workers are able to take payments after hours, so when we do shut off on this day that we are doing disconnects, we send out lists to them, to the person that's on call. They're aware of, everyone that is disconnected and what the amount would be if they do get a call, that they need to make a payment, because they have to pay through the square after hours, so the line worker knows that the payment, they can't just say, oh yeah, I paid on the portal. The line worker doesn't have access to that portal, they have to pay through that square.
So so then is that done through cold water?
No, we
Our
no
answer,
longer-
I mean,
We no
so,
longer use cold water, they just
Oh.
continue doing on-call service, it's called NRTC. Cold water referred us to them, they're a bigger,
Okay.
nationwide.
so then they, so if a, so a
If they
person,
call our-
person calls into our office,
Yep,
it's after hours, that automatically goes to this service.
Yep.
And then that service will then call out get a hold of our lineman,
our on-call person.
our on-call person.
Yep.
Okay,
And then, if they would like to be reconnected, then they have to pay through that Square app to get
Mhm.
reconnected after hours. The linemen, they know that, if they want, if you wanna wait and pay in the morning, then, you wouldn't have to pay the $100. So some people do, some people actually pay on the portal, don't call anyone, and then in the morning when we get in, say, yeah, I paid last night, can you turn me back on? Sure. So then we turn them back on, they just don't know, I guess, to
We do
call.
text messaging through cell
We do
phones, yeah.
text messaging.
Because like, when Rite Aid has a pharmacy, they text me, hey, your pharmacy, Maple Hill Golf Sales, hey Jim, because I'm on, so.
Yeah, he
I'm
spent
just
some money
saying-
this week.
Yeah, they do, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so do we offer, so we don't do that?
We don't do
Okay.
text messaging, no.
I didn't know, because so many people now have cellular phones that have that service versus,
So we have
letters
text,
and
you
phone
can pay
call.
by text.
yes,
Yeah, but we don't send any messages out to a customer regarding shut off or making, we text to make a payment, but we don't send a message to them.
How long has Lowell
Regarding.
Power had the Square option? Long time? or-
Yeah,
Okay, just curious.
7 years maybe?
Okay.
And it only really gets used for after-hour disconnect, so
Yes.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
That's
it doesn't get used for much of
No,
anything.
there's a lengthy, or not lengthy, but a fee.
Yeah.
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 So we only use it,
2.9% usually for Square.
Yeah.
really like it.
You have a small business owner here that probably is more educated on that than all of us.
They're taking it no
Throughout the
matter
year, how
what,
many
so.
times do you even use that? Once, maybe?
Yeah, maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
The most it ever got used at one time was when Larkins had their cable TV line get hit and they lost all of their internet, so they couldn't take payments and couldn't have business open anymore, so we allowed them to use our Square app and then they just reimbursed us.
I've never heard that story. I've been here 2 years and not heard that.
so and I bring this up every time, and I know, so, and it's a question, I'm always looking at the $10. And I don't know of any industry, credit cards, anything that has that low of late payment fee. I mean, it's $35, $50, and I think, and it's counterintuitive if they're having struggling paying their bills to raise the amount, but I just keep seeing what, not necessarily the electric industry, but just the credit cards, the banks, everybody has late fees, and they're a minimum of 35.
And it's, in many cases, these are for-profit corporations that are depending on increasing their shareholder dividend.
And I don't, I guess I'm questioning, like, so somebody that, are they just trying to beat the system or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and doing $10 and everything's
it
like,
costs us $100.
I think if we saw that trend, maybe it would be something to look at, but I don't think we see a trend of anybody abusing that.
It's, to me, I'd say it's not an abuse, it's a decision they make. We have our fees in place, if they're choosing to do it, they are appropriately penalized, or there's a fee to utilize that service. So if they're extending their time they have to pay through that, I would, from my experience, I would encourage late fees, reconnect fees, that do not encourage people to go underground, people will, and we're fortunate that we don't have an extremely large low income population in Lowell, which is nice. But I would, if you make roadblocks to retaining an electric service, there is no other option. The other option is those people will go live under somebody else's name, and then you run into debt collection issues, and you actually can drive your bad debt up. You can drive up your revenues, but you can drive your bad debt up as well.
I'm not looking to drive up revenues, I'm just trying to.
Cover, well, you more accurately cover costs if there are.
Well, cover costs, but also, encourage people to pay, you know, it's a penalty, you know, so, anyway.
Okay, so, last final thoughts is throughout the process, we made many payment arrangements with the customers. So we allow customers to pay 1 or 2 days after the scheduled disconnect date. We don't allow anyone to extend their past due amount 5 days after the tag date. So if they call, we ask them, okay, you can't pay your whole past due, but can you pay a portion of it? We try to get half, so if they go 50, can you pay 25 today, and then I can give you till the 21st, the next time you get a payment. Like a payroll or whatever. So each person obviously has different circumstances, different things that come up in their life, so they have different reasons why they can't pay on the day we are looking for them to pay. We do feel that a customer pays portion of it, that it shows that they're trying and that we are getting some amount. There is a time that some people just can only pay $5 or $10, so we definitely try to encourage them to make any sort of payment. We create a promise to pay in the system, and if they do promise to pay in a couple days, that system then tracks that, and then same thing would happen in a couple days. We have to do the same type of thing on the last day, where we would call them, email them. If they do not come in, they are given until noon, and then a line worker would come in and then go and disconnect them. Most people that make a promise to pay, they do pretty good. There obviously is some that our staff has to call and email and call and email. Sometimes a line worker is asked to swing by and see if the tag is still there, or, you know, why are they giving us a call? Depends sometimes on the situation, but let's see.
I have one last question,
Okay.
so.
He said last.
Hold to that.
This is my last question for Julie.
On this topic.
Do we send this procedure out 12 months of the year?
Do we send it out?
So are we tagging people to shut off, are we doing right now? Because we legally cannot shut people off right now.
We do everything but actually disconnect.
You know, I guess,
Call, email,
I understand that, but I guess in my, we're threatening a threat of turning power off.
Not really threatening, we say you're eligible.
Okay, you're eligible.
Because they are eligible to be disconnected on the disconnect date. We don't say when that date is.
It's April 15th.
Quite often, just having somebody standing in your door reminds people, like,
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why we do it, is we don't typically run into super hostile customers.
No.
They're, you know, in.
And pronounce my neighborhood.
They don't have ordinances out in Ionia County.
Yeah, we actually got a meter change last 2 weeks ago, I guess. And guy from Consumers, I was talking with him, he said, yeah, down the road, somebody pulled a gun on me.
Just to change what meter?
No.
Yeah, it's just a 30 to a 40.
Yeah, but that's what
They're both AMI.
Oh, no,
Yeah, so.
that's not why the gun got pulled?
It was probably raining.
Oh, I didn't know if you were doing the same thing? That
Former Lowell resident.
No, it was just a meter change.
Yeah, and then, yeah.
But the
Get
guy
the hell off my
suspicious.
property.
Yeah, I would say it's the.
It's a property
Right, the
So we do,
safe here.
yeah, so we do try really hard to not disconnect, that our goal is to not, we
Right.
really would rather get the payment, right?
Right.
So our goal is to not disconnect, but when we can disconnect, that is something that we do, and it usually wakes people up and they do call and make a payment.
What is the actual, what do you actually do? Just pull the meter, or is it more than just pulling the meter when you do your disconnects?
Yeah, the meter's usually pulled and then it's booted and flipped and put back in.
Got it.
Little plastic tabs.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
break that circuit.
Yep, so the other thing is, when people call in, obviously we make payment arrangements, we do encourage them to call from. From helps them, local churches, local, people that their friends or family. They can maybe perhaps help them make a payment, and then when they get their check, they can then pay their friend or family back, so.
So this question is for Ryan now. Or Charlie, or what-
Anybody but Julie?
Anybody but Julie.
This was for Charlie.
When we got the AMI meters, and maybe we didn't get the right one, or we got different, but some of them, the talk was you could turn them off remotely.
Yeah, they have a remote disconnect option. Typically, those meters, from my experience.
But we don't have that,
We don't
have that
them.
capability?
They're typically about twice as expensive.
Okay,
I think meter now is $135. Typically an RD or remote disconnect meters north of 220. So what I was told, was I asked the same question, is the payback's just not there when you can roll the truck in 2 minutes.
Plus, when we bought the meters, the board didn't want us to have the big brother
Right.
hold over top of people, so we weren't allowed to
Right.
buy that stuff.
okay.
I wish we had some.
Yes.
That's all.
For select few.
Well, and that's where so I've been responsible for deploying them, RD meters, and you target high turnover areas, apartments, trailer parks, rental properties. You target habitual offenders that are waiting, you have a customer that physically hands that disconnect person a check every month. They get an RD meter real quick. They stop that 1 month
Okay.
later when
Gotcha.
it just goes dark. But it also, the RD meter opens the door for opportunities like prepay programs. You have to have that disconnect process has to be automated if you're gonna offer a prepay program. Again, actually during my interview, that was brought up. I don't see necessarily a huge need right now for prepaid customers, or for a prepaid program. The cost to stand it up would have to be heavily subsidized by non-participants. So it can be a pretty intensive process and can be costly to set up and get ready. But again, that's an enhancement we can always look at. My guess is an RD meter could integrate seamlessly into our current system.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Bravo. I really like this process now because,
Thanks, Jeff.
thank you. Julie, in the past, there was, I didn't personally experience it, but I did hear grumblings from the past process that there wasn't really a clear process. And they're going, well, somebody, that I used to be able to come in and talk to someone, and they could stretch it out further, or what have you. I'm really glad that the process is, very clear and everybody follows it. I love that part because it's not fair that we're best friends and you're gonna let me stretch it out.
We do our best to avoid that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, Julie, for all this work. That's a tough job.
Collection system.
Disconnect management, loss prevention is a challenge.
Yes, it is.
All right, then we will roll on through to performance data. The only thing I want to highlight in performance data, which is interesting, if you look at year-to-date kilowatt hour sales, we are currently behind last year to date in total about 575,000 kilowatt hours. If you look at just the residential and industrial rate classes, we're about 800,000 kilowatt hours under our sales from last year. A lot of that's a product of a very mild summer, but it's also contributing to our bottom line at this point. Granted, if we sold that many more, we would have to purchase that many more, but as just a ballpark estimate, I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 in bottom line net income that are tied up in the net cost, net revenue less power cost for those kilowatt hour sales that didn't materialize this year. So gives a little insight into one of the factors influencing our income statement. But
Can't we just say that we're doing a great job of teaching our ratepayers to conserve, and so then we don't have to pay as much in the giving away free lights and everything?
Yeah, it's all those new energy appliances we're buying and
Right.
changing out to LED bulbs and.
we count on a little growth. We count on modest growth, but I honestly, I think a lot of this is very much weather driven. There is some factor of continuing energy efficiencies. I mean, those are we keep track of kilowatt hour savings. I would argue that all of those would not materialize. It's a paper number, but there is a piece of that would. Good news is our commercial sales have outpaced and offset some of those declining sales. So we'll see how the rest of the year pans out. Moving on, you'll see the cost per kilowatt hour, very much that graph follows, go to the next graph, sorry.
Yes.
That follows the trend with the PCA quite a bit and seasonality, but we're starting to see those some of those months creep back down, and that reflects in the PCA too. Cash, investments in cash is relatively stable, which is a pretty positive thing with the way that the income statement looks this month. So stable cash is a positive. We manage quite closely to cash management, not necessarily net income management, but we do consider both, manage to both, but cash is king. So moving on to the next graph, aging analysis. The only thing I'll highlight on the delinquent balances and aging analysis is the large commercial past due balance that the office staff has been working very diligently on for, how long have you all been working on that, Julie? I got a question for you now, sorry.
Which one, the one that just got paid
Yes.
this month?
Was it 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I was gonna say 5 or 6 months, so yeah.
Yeah, so that one's paid in full. That's good.
Yes.
That's one we're really happy to have.
Bravo.
So,
Good job.
Yeah.
moving on, electric requirements, similar graph. Paperless billing, auto pay. We did see a big jump in paperless billing. That was product of a component of the new portal, but month over month, we continue to see growth in all areas. So continuing that new customer portal has been extremely well received by our customers. We chose that one specifically for the payment. Some of the other bells and whistles we were less than impressed with. We're very underwhelmed was the word that we used. But the payment, ease of payment and integration and paperless billing functions were really what was the driving force in that deployment, so or conversion. So we're really seeing our customers gravitate to that, and it's been very successful on the backs of the hard work of the office.
I haven't heard complaints from a couple people that used the old system and have moved to the new system, yeah, I have not heard anything negative, so that's hopefully a
So,
canary in the coal mine.
yes, so with that,
Anecdotal evidence works for me.
which, with the portal and stuff, can you pay, your water bill with it at this?
Not ours. You can sign up to pay on their website.
Yeah, you pay on theirs, but no, we don't really have a way to integrate receiving water.
So how do you, so what, do they take, so is the city, when you're paying with your portal,
You're not allowed to add, you just pointed to
are
her.
you paying with credit card? I mean, is it,
You can pay credit card or you can do checking account or savings account.
so if you're paying with credit card, we do not charge our customers a fee for that?
Correct.
So do you know if the city on their portal, if you pay with, can you pay with a credit card? And are they charging you a fee?
Yes. Yes.
I hope that didn't go on the.
Next draft.
All right, so we're gonna go on to PCA revenue. We did see a little relief.
City council meeting.
What's that?
So he'll have 2 comments in there. So you
I got more than that.
don't- 5-minute limit.
All right, bullet points ready, Perry. So PCA revenue, again, the two lines very much are gonna continue to mirror each other closely. Or at least in the same shape, but on a positive note, we saw a little bit of relief in the PCA, which is a good thing. We needed a little bit of relief, and just talking with Steve before now, he's been, visibility into the markets, that seeing natural gas prices plummet and energy prices are following, so we'll see how sustained that is. I'm not counting on it. But, again.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, this is a challenge for sure, and this ultimately results in a challenge for our customers. That PCA is an effective rate increase to the customers with no new revenue to us. So when we have a revenue need like we did this year and had to take rate action, it's a compounding effect. So it's good to see that the PCA's hopefully on a trend in that direction. We'll see. Power costs were expensive in December, and there's about a 2-month lag, so Campbell 3 was down most of last month. Moving on to the outage report, I'm gonna hand this over to Mr. Teachworth.
Hey, pretty limited.
Yeah.
Only 2 outages this past month. While on Grand River, there was not exactly positive if it was an animal or a possible tree-related issue, but we did do some tree trimming out there, just some proactive stuff, communicate with some customers for some mowing that's gonna happen as soon as the ground freezes, and they're receptive to all that, so that's all good out there. The Pleasant Street location, bad connector for that outage. It's a style of a connector that we've eliminated from our material quite a few years ago. It's called an Insulink. It's kind of has the insulation and everything all incorporated into it, but the inner aluminum sleeve tends to move around inside of there. So when you install it and squeeze the wires into there, it tends to not be exactly where it's supposed to be. And one of those just failed because it wasn't all the way in exactly right, and something that we don't do anymore, so no worries.
If I remember correctly, that was the day of like one of the big snowstorms too, wasn't it?
No,
No?
I don't believe so.
Oh.
Not on the 3rd. It was just a random time.
Yeah. Because I remember driving by and seeing you guys back there.
Well, there was some work that we were doing back there to help out with the removal of the old 4160 system along the south side of Main Street that we've been doing in that same area. This was not related to that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we just use a simpler setup for connections. We have to apply tape to them after we put them on, which is a lot easier, and they do not fail very often, as often as the insulin. So, all good. 99.998% available in December, so that's pretty darn good.
With a blizzard.
Yeah, considering what we did have.
That wasn't a blizzard. Go
'78.
back to 77 and 78, I'll show you a blizzard.
That was crazy.
I was a little kid, I remember walking through town through that.
Smacking your head on the traffic light?
Exactly.
Yeah,
All right.
east traffic light.
We'll roll on to the income statement. I want to stop just briefly. Again, the income statement is very much the same story, but a little more alarming this month. Want to make it aware, make sure the board's all aware that we are currently sitting at a negative net income for the year. It's solely on the back of our purchase power expense, largely attributed to Bell River. I think, Craig, you were at the MPPA stakeholder meeting, and there was talk of the cross-state air pollution rule, called the Good Neighbor Rule, and NOx allowance limits. And for MPPA, as an entire agency, the NOx allowance budget 2 or 3 years ago was $10,000. Our piece alone this year was over $100,000. So we're a very small utility in the grand scheme of things. And I want to say MPPA's total expense this year is somewhere around $3 million. So that NOx allowance expense went from $10,000 a year to $3 million a year in the blink of an eye. And it's getting worse. There are fewer and fewer allowances allowed on an annual basis, and we are continue to be identified as a state that adversely impacts downwind states from an air pollution perspective. That's driving a lot of our power costs. Natural gas prices are driving a lot of our power costs. Coal prices are driving a lot of our power costs. An inability to bring solar to the grid. And we're facing some pretty daunting circumstances when it comes to our purchase power expense, but we are stabilizing it. If you look at the remainder of the fiscal year, we're hopeful that the line shack sale will go through at $130,000. That is bottom line revenue at this point. It'll hit the net income. The rate increase should produce around $300,000 in additional revenue for the second half of the year. We'll be taking a much closer look next month at that. Megan is currently doing a deep dive into some pro forma financials for the remainder of the fiscal year. So we'll have a little bit more visibility into that as things move forward. But the other change reaction that we need to make is we're going to stop making voluntary contributions to the MERS surplus division for the remainder of the year. That's a $75,000 I'll say savings because it's separately a deferral if anything. But we're going to revisit at the end of the year, and if there's room from a cash perspective and a net income perspective, we could consider making an additional lump sum contribution at the end of the year. But that $75,000 on the bottom line right now is important. So we're going to stop making those contributions. We'll still finish the year. If we make no additional contributions, we'll finish the year with $175,000 in that surplus division. $100,000 coming from the overfunded hybrid division being reallocated, and another $75,000 in voluntary contributions that we made on a monthly basis moving forward. Again, just want to draw everybody's attention to that. We continue to manage every other area that we can. We continue to look for opportunities to save, control costs, take advantage of circumstances. I'll highlight Casey's, capped our natural gas expense through a firm contract in the retail choice arena, and it's not huge savings, but it caps it, and it allows us to operate our generators a little bit more. The parameters aren't quite as tight when gas is pushing $15 an MMBTU all in. I think that's about where it got, wasn't it? 14-ish There's about 10 on the energy and another 4.5 on distribution, which some of it's rebated back, but when your gas is $10 to $15 in MMBTU, the economics of running those generators is pretty difficult to pan out. So Casey's capped our expense at under $5 in MMBTU. So great work there, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Megan has done a great job staying on top of investment opportunities. We're already very much limited in what we can do, but we found some, we have recently invested $250,000 in just a one-year treasury note at over 4%. The money was sitting in the bank making a fraction of a percentage, waiting to be reinvested in favorable mortgage-backed security investments. We continue to have mortgage-backed security investments, but we're doing everything that we can to minimize costs. Looking at a conversation with Perry today about some of my travel expenses, and I want to minimize some of my travel this year so I can ensure that the rest of our staff has the opportunity to get outside of our four walls. We have a relatively new office staff who have all been hired since COVID, and nobody's had the opportunity to go and network and engage with peers at conferences. So just looking at what items we can adjust and so that we ultimately finish the year in the black. I cannot commit to finishing the year in the black at this point. I'm optimistic, but I'm not the most optimistic person in the world. So, I will say that we are taking the necessary steps to manage our cash flow and make sure that we're not continuing to operate in a cash burn situation. We are operating in a cash conservation mode at this point, so the additional bottom line revenues that we'll generate in the second half, along with the changes in the savings we've had in the capital budget, I'm confident we can finish the year with cash growth, but it's going to be a challenge at this point. So everybody's committed to staying on top of it, and this is definitely a short-term pain. I think this is just doubling down on a lot of what Mark talked about last month, and you all saw in the presentations of multi-year trends, coupled with our need to continue to invest heavily and make up shortcomings in past investments in the distribution system, coupled with inflation, coupled with power costs. It just was a confluence that we've got to rebound out of, and the 5-year cash management, 5-year rate plan that we worked through with UFS will set us on that path. But I didn't want to breeze over this, and there's not a whole lot to highlight on individual line items. It's really highlighting two line items, that purchase power expense and the net income at the bottom. But with that, happy to answer any questions, but I will move on if there are no questions.
I mean, yeah, got this, you're going at it from every angle, so,
I hope.
Yeah.
No, we are. We're tackling it. I mean, you can't put your head in the sand. So, moving on, capital projects. There's really not much to report on capital projects right now. They're working on odds and ends things with the diesel generator. We got rid of that dang thing. The generator that's going to go out front here. But most capital projects are relatively on hold at this point. Generator's been ordered, capacitor's been ordered. Stony Bluff everything's installed at this point except for conductor, and we're waiting until homes are being built on conductors. Harvest Meadows is rocking and rolling on their new phase, and material's been ordered for the east side feed. So from a capital project standpoint, all balls have been put in motion. A lot of projects have been wrapped up, but we're just kind of in a holding pattern for the time being. Moving on to the manager's report. Not much to report in terms of MPPA, MMEA, the MMEA board meetings tomorrow. I do want to highlight a change in the manager's report this month, as I've asked Ryan to start providing the distribution update. I've always been concerned that I don't represent the work they do fairly. They do amazing work, and I've just asked Ryan to provide that, and I think you'll see the level of insight has gone up significantly this month, so he'll continue to do that, and I want to just highlight that and thank him for that. Did want to highlight the noteworthy item, no outages, no blinks, Blizzard 2022. Even if Barry doesn't like it, call him Blizzard. We still got good wins, but no, system held up great. So yeah, we're please, if you didn't read that in detail, please go back and read that section in detail for sure, as it's a little bit of a change move, and we'll continue that moving forward. I'm going to hand over and ask Casey to provide a verbal update as well as his written update that he's provided, and again, Casey will continue to provide generation update and does a great job doing that. But if you could provide a little bit of additional commentary on the Max Gen event, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, so we had a Max Gen event this past month. It was actually on the 23rd, so it was a Friday, just 2 days before Christmas. It was very unexpected. Typically, well, since I've been here, we've only had 3 Max Gen events. And I believe those are the only 3 Max Gen events that MISO has ever had.
Yes.
So they're very rare to have in the first place. Typically they happen in the summer, on a weekday, peak heat, extreme load on the grid. This was a little different. Friday before Christmas, load was down, but there were extreme cold temperatures across a large part of the country. So that put a ton of demand on the grid. The other thing that was really unique about this one was it was for the entire MISO footprint. So all the way from Montana, to Michigan, and then down to like Louisiana, and back up to kind of Montana, North Dakota area. The entire grid was in kind of a dire high demand condition. I know neighboring grids, TVA had a bunch of issues with their generation assets, so it was really unique from that perspective as well. And the other thing that was really unique is typically you get warnings. There are notifications a day or 2 ahead of time. Cold weather, extreme cold, extreme heat. Just giving you a heads up. What happened this time was at 5 p.m. There was a warning that went out at 6 p.m. So just an hour later, they wanted the generators running. So it was quick, very unexpected, and during a blizzard. So one of the things we did when it first happened. Typically Tom and I would come in and operate the generators. Tom is a half-hour drive away with good weather, so that was kind of our first challenge. Was we didn't really want Tom driving in bad roads, long drives. So we got in touch with Zach, and Zach came in.
He was the on-call lineman too.
Yeah, he did a great job coming in. Awesome effort and positive attitude with the situation. And it also kind of highlights preparedness that Charlie put in effect back in the summer, really wanting more redundancy with people related to operating the generators. Back in the summer, we actually had it was one time that we operated the generators with the line department, just to kind of get them acclimated with the operation of the equipment. the process we go through with starting them up, just in case, we ever needed somebody other than Tom and myself to operate them. So that was, really wise, great planning on Charlie's part to put that in motion, because it worked. Like I said, Zach was here. We both, don't live too far away, and we were able to start the generators. A lot of challenges with the cold blizzard. The gas compressor sits outside, so it took a while for us to heat up the oil in the system. We did have some challenges operating the gas compressor. Nothing too extreme, but we think that they were all cold weather related issues. So I guess to sum it up, we were able to respond to the maximum generation event. We fulfilled our commitment. Definitely some lessons learned and things that we've already improved upon to prevent things from inhibiting us in the future.
I was gonna ask, did you do anything to harden the system for cold weather events?
Yeah, so we added some pressure gauges to
Okay.
kind of monitor some of the processes out there that we didn't have pressure gauges before, so we couldn't exactly tell if things were operating correctly or not, because we didn't have any sort of insight into whether pressure was being applied or not. So we've added gauges. We tried to simulate the issue that we experienced, but we started up the gas compressor the very next week, and we just couldn't replicate the issue. So we think it was definitely cold weather related. We don't know exactly the root cause of the cold weather. Like what exactly, is this some component that contracted just enough to where it didn't operate, or is there something else going on? So the next time we get a cold snap, we're also going to try and turn it on and see if we can get it to misbehave again.
Casey secured himself some outdoor 5-degree weather. Some outdoor work at very, very cold temperatures.
Everything went fairly well. We didn't run both of the generators simultaneously because of the gas compressor issue that we had. But if we would have actually ran the entire town on the generators. So would have been a cool achievement to have, but
Yeah, we would have been a net exporter of power.
yeah.
I thought, which highlights how unexpected the event was. We expect to offset a percentage of our load during a max gen event, because we expect that our load is going to be significantly higher than a normal load, but there was we will hear more about it tomorrow at the MPPA board meeting. But I'm curious to know how close we were to rolling blackouts.
What time of day was this?
It started at 6:30-ish and ran till 9-ish.
6 p.m. is when the Max Gen event started on
Yeah.
the Friday before Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was definitely unexpected. There were rolling blackouts in TVA service territory. There were rolling blackouts in Duke in North Carolina. And Steve actually just told me there were rolling blackouts in PJM, which is a transmission operator that's in the Ohio. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland. But it's the MISO of the Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland area. So there's pretty widespread. I got to talk to some old colleagues that had to deal with rolling blackouts. So there were we will hear some significant challenges tomorrow amongst other members. I think we were probably very close to. We were all very close to all working the Friday, and instead just Casey and Zach came in, and
Yeah.
want to thank them for that as well.
How many other how many other MPPA, like, does Portland have generation? I mean, how many others are similar to Lowell?
Sure,
I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, do they have their own, a small generation? Do they?
I think probably most.
Portland, New Zealand, Holland,
Grand Haven got rid of all their generation. didn't they?
yeah. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Traverse City, Marquette.
I think I don't know if Marquette's are LMRs though.
They're not behind the meter? Or are they not?
But they're not a,
They're a point-to-point customer, but it gets gotten, there are some others, but like Lowell is,
Unique?
we're probably pretty unique. I don't think there's a ton of combustion
Bay City.
turbines, are there?
Bay City is another one.
Bay City, yeah. But, most of them are, like Portland's are all just big engine, or I don't know what they have.
They are, not Fairbanks Morris, that's what we have, they're, Cooper Bessemer. Same old, very old vintage style, 1950s, 1960s, large recip, gensets, but I think,
Recent jets, that's what I was thinking.
yeah,
No,
I think,
not turbine.
Holland, I think was the only other combustion turbine, and I think they're getting rid of that one. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Holland Energy Park, that's all.
That, yeah.
But yeah, there were some challenges. I'm curious to hear. I heard from a colleague in a conversation that they were told to not take any more gas off the pipeline. So there were competing interests at the time. The gas company was saying, don't pull any gas off the pipeline, and NISA was saying, turn on all your generators. So
Right.
until there's coordination between the natural gas and the electric industry, and that was one of the recommendations that came out of Winter Storm Uri, was better coordination between the gas and natural gas industry and the electric industry. I'm not versed in that topic, but it doesn't take somebody well-versed to understand that it's problematic when you need to be producing more electricity, but your fuel source provider is telling you don't use fuel.
Yeah, and if you remember the,
Does that ever happen at the same company?
Well, these are,
Not mentioning any names.
this was not them. But,
yeah,
all
I
right.
remember with the MISO report, annual MISO report highlighted that kind of transition, getting rid of coal, transitioning to natural gas, where with coal you have typically a month's supply of fuel sitting on the ground next to your plant, where natural gas, you're
On-demand
on
customer.
demand, spontaneous, instantaneous kind of use of that fuel. So yeah, it's
And there's a lot of generators on the same natural gas line. So I know MPPA had an issue getting the Kalkaska CT up and running during the Max Gen event. So again, there'll be more lessons learned tomorrow, but it was, I can't say enough about the response from our staff, from Casey and Zach. In a time that it was a paid holiday, it was unexpected, it was late, it was a weekend, it was a lot of things going against us, and the two individuals stepped up and carried the utility, so.
Thank you for your dedication
Yeah,
and service.
definitely.
I offered to bring him McDonald's, that's about my contribution, I didn't do it
I
either,
would have
so.
brought you.
Culver's was closed.
Culver's right now.
We'll roll on. I don't have a ton else in the manager's report. I do want to highlight the work that we're doing with the safety update. One of the strategic plan reviews, we had added a safety-centric culture, so I want to make sure we're continuing to communicate with the board our plans for safety. Ron is somewhere around official retirement. We don't necessarily know.
Wait a minute, so is he still coming into work?
He is retired and for all practical purposes, Ron's last day was last Thursday, so
Okay.
we are moving forward with our safety program. We hate to see Ron go, but we are excited for a few of just change. Change has to happen.
Yeah.
Ron did an amazing job and carried our safety program, but when it's not an option to continue to carry it in-house, you have to embrace change, and we're excited for that opportunity. We've identified this company called the Line LLC, who's it's a safety consulting, safety training, safety consulting company that was started by currently an active lineman with DTE. We've met with him once. We've got him scheduled to do an OSHA 10 and an OSHA 20 class for our guys. And then we'll look to expand that relationship. But one of the things that I think I'm most excited about, and I think Ryan's excited, we're looking to partner with Portland on quite a bit of our safety program. So Ryan and I spent an afternoon over in Portland talking with a couple other line workers, and Todd, their general manager or electric superintendent, whatever his title is, and we're going to really partner with them and work with them. They have a great relationship with the co-op that's in the community, so they learn from the co-op quite a bit. But we're just looking forward to the networking and just building that partnership amongst the two entities. So I was very impressed with their staff that I met. A bunch of great attitudes. So really looking forward to seeing what materializes with our safety program this year. Other than that, again, I highlighted Ron's retirement. Ron's last day was last Thursday. He did not want a big party. We thought we would sneak one in, and I think Ryan was working with Ron's wife, and it quickly became apparent that we should do what Ron wants to do. It's his celebration. So we had a small cookout down here. Just the staff sat around for a couple hours, told stories, played a little cornhole, ate a meal, got that picture that's turned into the picture with all the names on it.
Oh, good, yeah.
Was as close to a serious picture as I think we captured the whole time. We were gonna take the opportunity to get an updated team photo, and that did not work out so great, I don't think. But it was a good time. It really was a lot of fun, and
Good.
I cannot thank Ron enough for the 25 years of service that he gave to this community and this company. So he'll be greatly missed, but we'll drag him back a few times here and there. Anniversaries, want to highlight. Just down on the other end of the table, Julie celebrated her 12th anniversary. I still have 10 in my head because the day I got here, it was 10, and I feel like I just got here, so it was a little eye-opening to see 12. And then Zach, again, for me, Zach's, in my head, Zach's 3 years, but 5 years, and I want to thank both of them for the amazing work that they do. Couple other notes. I will send out a reminder, but every year Whitney and I like to do just an appreciation meal, something to show appreciation for staff, for the board. We could not do that before Christmas. So please mark your calendars, February 10th, it's a Friday at noon. Noon to 2, we will be having just a team appreciation meal at Flat River Grill. Got it hopefully lined up. I'm not an event planner, but I take the reins on planning this
There you go.
to maybe to the detriment to everybody else, but it's important, so I do it. So February 10th at noon, we will meet at Flat River Grill. We'll shut the office down for a couple hours, and we'll pull everybody together and just have a good meal and
Very good.
say thank you to everybody. Other than that, Christmas tree recycling program, I think was a success this year. We'll see once the trees get shipped up tomorrow, but I think there's 20 or probably 30, maybe 20 or 30 trees down there. Glad there's not 2, and I'm glad there's not 400. So that's a good number. There's definitely at least one tree from 2021 in there, but
Yeah.
That's fine.
There's also one, what, 20-foot tall?
So I questioned that one.
I did too. Is that from Julie's house?
We put that there to show people where, that was a tree that needed to get cut down that was in the right of way. So they cut it
That's the
down.
one you talked about.
Okay.
Gotcha. I saw that down there, man, that's a big.
Yeah, because I've got 3 of them that I told David, I says, drop those.
I got
Bring
2.
them over here. So I got 3 of them.
Okay.
Here in a couple weeks, not me, but we as a company are gonna be hosting Rotary in the Energy Center. So, or right here, but we're not gonna do it here. We're gonna do it out in the generation facility.
Very cool.
Is it next week? I lose track of weeks. It's the 18th.
18.
It's the 18th, next week, yes.
Yeah.
This week's not over, so we count, this is one next to it.
Yeah. So to that come?
It's only Tuesday.
Absolutely.
Guess the Rotary.
Yes, to the Rotary. But we'll do, we're gonna do tours. I wanna highlight I've really pawned off a lot of the presentation on Casey and Ryan, but they've got a great story to tell. Both of them have put blood, sweat, and tears into converting this facility into what it is today.
Yes.
And as a utility, we should be proud of the work that they've done. We'll give them an opportunity to highlight it. But no, they're gonna pull some pictures out, highlight what this facility looked like years ago, and then we're gonna do a tour. And I think it should be eye-opening and really should,
You got pictures of what it used to look like?
oh man, there's some pictures that I see.
Some I shouldn't show probably.
I was gonna say, some of them, we may have to edit some of them, but no, Ryan showed me pictures of just what out here on the floor looked like.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen junkyards they have less stuff in them. But they've done an amazing job. The facility's clean, it's new, it's nice. It'll be nice to highlight the turbines. I've asked Ryan to highlight the new service bucket truck. We can have it, show it, highlight the hybrid technology. So I look forward, I love what we do here and look forward to having some people in here that,
Who's catering in?
whoever Rotary does all that.
Or do they?
I think it's,
Could be my sister, I
I'd say-
have no idea.
she usually does.
She gets a certain days and somebody else gets certain days,
Ah, is that how-
so they do rotate
They do.
that part of it.
And that date again, just want to confirm.
Next Wednesday
Yeah,
at noon.
18th.
Yeah, 18th.
Very cool.
Other than that, the last thing I have is next month, we will do a strategic plan review. There were some questions about the action items. We're gonna continue to present action items. But wanna just to, get everybody thinking about strategic plan, trying to really boil things down. There was a lot of discussion during the governance training about the action items list really not being board action, because it's really the means to the ends. I think it's a very effective tool. I want to continue to present it to the board so you all have a vision of what we're trying to accomplish and why we're trying to accomplish it. But I want to start formulating those, boiling them down into what are these things accomplishing? What are those ends that we're trying to accomplish through these means? In my head, it makes sense. I don't know how it'll materialize. I feel comfortable with the direction that we're heading as a utility. I know as I look at evaluate myself and I look at our staff, our leadership team is committed to moving this utility forward. And I think that's the most important thing of a strategic plan. So I'm very confident that we are spending our time wisely, that we are dividing up our efforts and making sure we're pushing multiple balls forward. But want to just give the board a heads up that we will be having that discussion next month, and we'll be asking for input as we go into budget season, which will present a draft budget in March. So we are ramping up for a very busy spring for sure, and I'm excited. So it'll be fun. Keep us busy. We don't have enough going on, but we got a lot coming up in the spring, and it's all very, very important, good stuff. So that's all I have for the manager's report.
Okay, schedule of meetings, next regular.
Did you want to show this?
Oh yeah, I do want to go check this out sometime too. I showed a picture of Mark last month, but this is, so want to highlight a couple of things here, actually, real quick. This is where the actual generator is going to go. We had a spot after the parking lot was redone that pooled water and was a potential safety hazard in the winter. So that's why I didn't do squat. They keep me out, keep me away from concrete saws and things that break things. But they cut across and poured in that whole area and were able to fill in and correct that minor blemish.
Go away from.
So this is the outside,
Yeah.
just to, if you look where the yellow post is, that's the garage, the main garage door coming in there, so it's sitting outside in the corner.
And those two yellow brackets are gonna be, for removable bollards,
Yeah.
which was a cool addition. I'm not surprised they're available, but I wasn't aware of them. I think Casey tracked those down, and it will definitely protect the asset while also allowing for ease of maintenance. So just like to highlight that we do a lot in-house and we do it really well. It's not, a lot of times you take on a project like, a company takes on a project like this in-house, they sacrifice on quality, and they sacrifice on foresight, but I would say that we take advantage of the opportunities and really plan to protect ourselves. We don't count on somebody else, so everybody does great work when we do things in-house. That's everything.
So, board meeting, Valentine's Day, February 14th.
I believe that, I've heard from one board member that there is a conflict.
With their wife? I mean, because it's Valentine's Day? Is that the conflict?
There's one conflict that's a business conflict, a work-related conflict.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, I don't know if there's any appetite to push the meeting out to 15th, or I don't know if there's any appetite for that.
That would be good.
It's up, it's up to the rest
It's
of them.
me, I'm fine if you guys wanna go, I'll just, review the board packet and talk to Charlie beforehand, as long as we got enough for quorum and stuff.
And Dave and I meet on a monthly basis to review things typically, so.
I just wanted people to.
Got a big
aware.
Valentine's
Huge
shindig?
Valentine's Day.
Oh, good,
Wow,
good.
cool.
Gonna be in
We'll see,
a
yeah, we'll see, you'll see
Be in a-
Wednesday, I'll
12.
be happy or upset.
12 square foot space, huh?
I mean, I literally don't care if it's moved to the 15th, which is be Wednesday. It's up to the rest of the board members.
I'd say probably not move it, because I might end up being busy on the 15th as well, so. It might be the same.
Right, and I'm not necessarily for you, but for the rest of these, these romantics
Yeah.
that are on the.
Hot days
Let
and
me call
such.
Teresa and see how she feels.
Get him out of there.
A day without, is that quiet?
That sounds like a great Valentine's Day.
I'm pretty sure my wife's not gonna be disappointed.
Okay, we're gonna keep it at the 14th. I haven't heard anybody
Okay.
rail about changing it, so. Okay, board comment, Tina.
I just want to say, it was great seeing Steve again. He always brings a wealth of knowledge. And we didn't get to see his normal Rain Man, how he could figure out something in his brain right then and there. I missed that part of our conversation. Good job on that, Steve. Ron, I graduated with Ron and he has retired, and I wish that he has a great time now, because he definitely deserves to enjoy that grandson and just do whatever he wants. So good job on him. And also good job to Lowell Power, all the employees, because collectively we do have a dream team here, people. And for you to come in during the blizzard, which I think was called Elliott for some reason, but I'll tell you, that, it was kind of scary, you know, that wind and such, you know, but thanks for coming in and thanks for Zach, that we came into. Yeah, we do have the dream team, and like I said before, and I'll say it again, I love going to Lansing or Detroit for the Blues, because when they have hiccups or problems in their weather, they all look to me and they go, did you have a problem? I go, no, not in Lowell, Michigan. You guys gotta move here to Lowell. You know, and they love that. They love that we are dependable. So, thank you.
Daniel?
Congrats to Ron, Julie, Zach. Yeah, thank you Casey and Zach for making it in and keeping us from getting yelled at for myself.
Yeah.
Full, not to mention the money aspect. That's it, I guess.
Andrew?
So, I like what Ken said about, the anniversaries from Julie and Zach. So 4 more years, we'll look at 16 years, will be another presentation on collection.
Probably. There'll be a new board, there'll be turnover at the board.
And then it'll be 17 years.
8-year-old data, right? I appreciate the presentation again. I like all those trainings that we get. And of course, congratulations to Ron for making it out.
Jim?
One thing that got me was when Steve talked about was the key customers. And I saw that was 10% of our top customers do 53% of our business. Not only is that a particular low-lying power concern, but it also should be a city concern if we were to lose one of those. So I don't know if there's been any conversation, talk between you, the city manager or anybody. What does that look like as a joint venture, going in and talking to key customers on what does that look like for the whole Lowell, like the whole city of Lowell? I'd be willing to help partake in that from a city standpoint, but just think about it as something I was thinking about a lot, but sitting here that maybe there's something we could do together. Because I mean, it would be a huge tax thing, and from the city side, you lose a couple hundred employees, whatever somebody has, but that's a huge economical impact on us too. So what do we do to maybe work together on those key customers, things that we can do together? So something like that tonight.
So is there a similar issue with the water and wastewater, where they've got huge dominant customers?
Yeah, I mean, that's what that would fall under city too, but I agree with you, maybe it's more than just this part of it. Yeah, and I did retire last week too, after 48 years in the business. And it gives me more time to spend time in the city walking around and talking, so
Okay.
look for that.
Fantastic, stop by the office sometime, please.
Yeah,
Good
Don't go eat, well, stop by right before lunch.
yeah, I don't have a company card anymore.
Hey, that's all right. I will happily sit down and eat lunch with you.
Yeah, so that's it, Perry, thank you.
Great.
Congratulations, really, on what, 12 years, yes. Lowell Light Power is lucky to have you, and yeah, we see that every day. And Brian, Casey, thank you for your dedication to keep things rolling. And of course, I've said this to Ron, probably this is my 3rd time saying something. I was at a luncheon a couple months ago. Anyway, yeah, congrats to Ron. And it was nice to see you here today. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Now it's under board comments, so, Julie, I got one question for you.
You're not asking today.
Does the portal and everything accommodate, and the payments accommodate the A+ program? I mean, so somebody can, like, again, my wife, we don't
Right.
do that, we
Yeah.
checks, but, we add $5 every, to our bill for the
Right.
A+
So
Does-
some people round up, right, like they've
Yep.
elected to round up, so that's already included in your bill. So when your bill gets processed, you owe $48 because you've already rounded up.
Okay,
Can you make that payment through the portal? Yes. If you are going to pay, you'd like to pay additional $5 on top of that? No, right now the portal doesn't take, and you can't add any more on top of the roundup.
There is a feature
Yes.
that we've not turned on yet because we're still
working.
We're still working through a lot. The portal's has been great, but it's been,
And it's additional fee to add that feature.
Really? Wow.
I
they
think,
didn't tell us that.
yeah.
So it costs you 45.
It's interesting.
In each one you add was an additional fee too, because you'd add like, Red Cross. and
Also, they do
each one you
inline
add-
donations. I remember the term,
Each
the
one you
phrase.
had to pick was additional fee,
Ah.
so.
Overhead.
And then with the portal, because I think we talked about this before, so do we put so when we get our bill, because we're not paperless, we get that page of information about, that's stuffed in there from the city, from the Lowell Light and
If we had a
Power.
bill insert, you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah.
so is that page online or whatever that?
Yep, so it's on the website,
Okay.
under latest news, the insert. Right now.
But you would have to specifically go to our website.
Well, right now there's a indication and it brings you there, but we're looking into different things. We wanna actually have it like, actually linking right there, but it kind of brings you there, then you have to kind of know where to go. So we've looked into a few different things. We might have to add another page to the website and it would go right to that page, so it knows where to go. We're working with our website design person, not the person that works at Lowell and Power that adds things on there, but the person that is behind the scenes that like takes care of our website. We've reached out to them and asked a few different questions because we want a different way than the way it works right now. So we are looking into it because we want them to be able to have the link and go right to the insert, not go to the website, then you have to know where to go, so.
Yeah, the goal will be to have it linked straight to the PDF website, so you can pull it up, but that's a work in progress as well. But
Yeah.
I asked for an update on that recently, and they're actively working on it.
Yeah,
It's
we
just-
sent a message, the people at the website haven't gotten back to us yet.
So, this next topic is really for the rest of the board and probably for Charlie. And, do you think it's needed or would benefit to have an official joint session with the council to talk about different things that,
I say the more the merrier. You know?
you know, I know the rest of the board might not, I mean, we're working through some tree issues, we're working through, different things, and I guess my question be to the rest of the board, and Jim, would it behoove, having, in sometime in the future,
I would
having
like to
another
have a
joint
clear
session?
cut, define agenda of what those topics are. And then maybe once we decide what maybe we break into some smaller groups afterwards, and it's me and Tina and Cliff, and then it's you and somebody else, just to get some different opinions, and even from Ryan or Charlie too. 'Cause sometimes you work in those smaller work sessions, you get, maybe you're a little bit more open and free to talk, and because there are really no wrong answers, sometimes in a long group. You know, there's some that are a little bit more overbearing than others. You know, it is just the way it is, so I think that might work.
Good idea.
I was gonna say the same thing, more or less than Jim did, about whatever we do, just make sure we have an agenda. You know, like a few topics we want to discuss.
Yeah,
Goals, what do we want to accomplish?
exactly.
Yeah.
And we talk, I'll talk all day. But, you know, what are we trying to accomplish?
Okay. One other, charter. So, is it when do we, are we started to work on the budget? Because we have to, I mean, I don't know if it's February, March, it's the second.
March week, we will present the budget to the Light Power Board in March, submit it to the city just as a draft budget in March. They use that, I believe, to incorporate it. The charter just says we have to
By the
submit a draft budget by.
Second week of, I mean, my point being is, I think a lot of our things in the charters are outdated and different things, but if I'm, calling the city out on things, I just wanna make sure that we are in compliance with the charter.
I would have to review exactly what the charter says, but we historically have always presented the draft budget in March. I've gotten Light and Power Board approval of the draft budget in March, and then the charter says we just have to submit that to the city. The council doesn't act on the draft budget. Then we will bring a revised budget in May, submit that to the city by the end of the May, and then I believe in the first June meeting, or maybe it's the second May meeting, city council reviews budget and approves the overall budget, which our budget is incorporated into the city's budget. So yes, I will verify exactly what the language in the charter says, but we do what we have historically done. And that's never caused an issue to what I'm aware of, but we will be preparing the budget. I would say that if we need to submit the draft budget any earlier, it loses value
Well,
very quickly. If we have to.
yeah, because we're working on assumptions of what's gonna happen for the next 4 months, and
But we will, if that's what it says, we will comply and we'll just adjust our internal practices. But I'm pretty confident we're in compliance with the charter with the way we handle things.
okay. Congratulations to Julie. And who else was?
Zach was 5 years.
Zach was 5 years. Congratulations to Zach. Time flies by. And Ron's retired, but I'm just gonna say, you're never really retired. You end up working harder at something else.
It's just not on our payroll anymore.
It's just not on payroll, right? So anyway,
He's
with
volunteering now?
with that, I would entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me, one last thing. I apologize for my unprofessionalism tonight. Emotions sometimes get the better of me. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Support? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
8:32. I don't know, Joe.